Hi all, and here, and welcome back to the channel, where today's video is all about buying high mileage Audi TT cars, the good points and the bad points, and whether it's right for you. Now, there are a range of pros and cons for buying a high mileage Audi TT Mk1, and I'm going to cover that in this video. In fact, I was going to do a video on comparing high mileage against very low mileage cars, but the people that are in the market for either end of the scale aren't necessarily the same people. So I'm going to cover low mileage cars in a separate edition. However, it's freezing cold in the garage, so let's go inside and talk about it in a bit of comfort. The choice between a high mileage car and a low mileage car depends on a variety of factors. So are you looking for a prime future classic or a car to tinker with? High mileage cars do of course introduce their own set of problems, but they also provide an entry level into a future classic. So let's look at the good point before we delve into these factors more deeply. Number one is the initial cost. High mileage cars do have a much lower upfront cost when comparing to low mileage versions of the same make or model. This is especially true in the world of the TT Mk1. So when comparing the same make and model TT on a, say, 60,000 mile car, you're going to find the higher mileage car has a much lower starting point.
Here's a great example. On the left we have a Mk1 red 225 with 78,000 miles on the clock. On the right, a red Mk1 with 170,000 miles on the clock, also a 225. Asking prices? Well, as you can see, the higher mileage car is almost 1/3 of the price of the lower mileage car, and that comparison car is not even that low. Condition and spec seem similar and they are the same model. The only obvious thing affecting the prices here are the miles covered, so a lot more car for the money on the high miles to get you into the world of TT ownership.
Number two is of course depreciation. Now you're going to find many of these Audi TTs are 20 years plus old, so the majority of the depreciation has already affected their starting value. And that might of course be a benefit to you because you're going to find less depreciation during your own ownership. So if you're buying these cars at a rock bottom price, you're not going to find you're losing too much money when you come to resell.
A good example being that the high mileage cars, which we shall classify here as 150,000 miles plus, seem to be priced between £500 and £1,000. You don't see TTs any cheaper than this, and even cars that are being broken for parts are worth around £500. So if you decide the TT is not for you, you are unlikely to lose your initial investment as the price will not go any lower.
Number three of the factors is your bargaining position. Sellers of high mileage cars might be more willing to negotiate on price. This will provide you with the opportunity for a good deal. I mean, these cars are already cheap, even on low miles, but this puts you in a strong position when buying high mileage cars.
Due to the low price of much lower mileage examples means the higher mile cars will be even cheaper. The Mk1 is plentiful right now, and it is definitely a buyer's market due to choice. Therefore, you can drive down the seller on price due to the availability and competition of other cars that are for sale.
So what should I be looking for in a high mileage Audi TT Mk1? Well, frequency in high mileage can sometimes be a good thing. At least nothing should be seized and the car should be well worn in. But there are some things you really should look out for, and the first one of these is a great service history. You're going to want to make sure that the car has got a detailed service history with the service book and all the stamps are in there in the right place. This will be a great indicator that the car has been well looked after in its life. Also, check the MOT history. Has the car sat idle for many years? You can check that by looking at the distances covered between different MOT years. Sitting around and not moving for long periods of time gives components chance to seize or perish. High miles means it has taken some love and care to get it to such a great distance. So it's likely to have had some good maintenance at some point in its life, hopefully through the entirety of its life. Otherwise, it's not even going to have got to this point. I would also say cars that have had maybe one or two owners are definitely more desirable. If it stayed with one owner for a long period of time, it's obviously been well loved. Cars that have changed hands frequently and had lots of owners are likely to have led a very tired life. You've also got to ask yourself why the car has changed hands so many times. If possible, you want to focus your search on unmolested models. And the reason for this is standard cars will give you a great blank canvas for either a restoration project or maybe your own car build. So let's take a look at some example cars for sale right now on internet auction sites, and let's see if we can find good ones and bad ones. Let's start off with this example.
Okay, so this appears to be an unmolested standard car on 140,000 miles, although the advert does seem to suggest the MOT is due soon. Looking through the MOT history, I can see it has had a lot of advisories recently and major defects which were all fixed. It does not seem to have sat idle recently either, as it's covered between 5 and 10,000 miles a year for the last 10 or so years. It has been reduced in price, but I expect this is down to the competitor cars in this bracket with lower miles. Perhaps the seller is being realistic with his pricing, but may also indicate they want a quick sale. A handy bargaining tip. Advice to the seller would be get it MOT'd before sale. Advice to the buyer would be look at the advisory from last time, as these are unlikely to have been sorted since the last MOT.
Okay, well then let's take a look at this car.
Here's another one, and I will let you make up your own opinions about it. It's on 159,000 miles, and looking at the service record, it was on 142,000 miles in 2015. So it's done only 17,000 miles in the last 9 years. The general appearance is looking more tired than the previous example and evidenced under the bonnet. The factory plastics are gone and it looks like it needs a good tidy up. You've also got to factor in this car has had 7 owners. The advertisement claims to have a stage 2 remap, so it's likely to have been tinkered with, and that was 13 years ago according to the invoices. The seller has been honest and listed broken items such as windscreen, which is at least £250 to get replaced, and scuffs to the rear bumper. So there is definitely some investment for a new owner to make this car great again. No bids yet, and it's well under £1,000, so if you're looking for a project, maybe it's for you. I will let you decide if this is one you would want to buy or walk away from.
Components and parts are not always readily available anymore for the Audi TT Mk1, despite there being a great range of breakers in the UK. Some parts brand new just do not exist. Things such as subframes you can't get hold of. This is probably one of the main reasons you're seeing so many Mk1 Audi TT 3.2 V6s being broken right now, because the fixes that are needed doing to things such as timing change, which can cost north of £2,000, or gearbox and mechatronics problems with a DSG gearbox, also £2,500 to £3,000, to simply make the cars uneconomical to keep on the road. So if you're going to look at a cheap high mileage TT, think about that, because for the V6, the timing chain tends to start wearing after 100,000 miles. So if you've got a car that's on 150 to 200,000 miles and it's not been done, chances are there's going to be some chain stretch. When looking at the 1.8T models, you want to make sure that you can find evidence of things such as cam belts being changed, oil pickup pipes being changed, because if the car's been sitting around with high mileage without those jobs being done, it could have put a lot of unnecessary wear on the engine. So here's some things to factor in that I think you should consider when looking to buy a high mileage Audi TT Mk1. Firstly, be realistic. This car is 20 years old. It's going to have parts that go wrong on it. It's going to have problems. You're going to have to be prepared to fix those things. You're unlikely to be buying a pristine car with immaculate bodywork and a perfect running engine. You're also probably going to have to accept that the car you've bought with the high mileage is not going to be the future classic that's tucked away in a garage somewhere, because there's always going to be lower, much better conditioned cars out there than your high mileage cheap car. Being realistic is also thinking about the future value of this car. Now, if it's high mileage, it might not have as much life left in it as one of the lower mileage versions. So I would say buy this car and enjoy it rather than thinking about garaging it for the future. After all, the Audi TT Mk1 is built for driving. It's not built for tucking away in a garage. Saying all this, you must be prepared to spend. There is likely to be lots of maintenance parts needed and a variety of parts that will fail due to wear. I find high mileage Audi TT Mk1s take more maintenance than changing the oil and filters. Things that are likely to have been worn on a car of this age include all the suspension components. Underneath the car it might be full of corrosion. So when you're trying to establish the life that your potential high mileage Audi TT Mk1 has had, you want to get on the floor and get a look underneath the car. Look for signs of corrosion, particularly on the suspension components. Give that car a good rock up and down and see how that suspension performs, because a 20-year-old car, if it's on original shocks and springs, it's likely to be pretty tired. Now, suspension components are available for the Audi TT Mk1 and lots of cars have replaced these with aftermarket versions. So suspension is likely to be one area you want to take a look at. The interior of the car tells as many stories as the exterior. So get inside it and have a look at how worn those seats are. Have the bolsters been worn by the constant getting in and out of these cars, particularly on short journeys? Or is the interior looking nice? Get down and look at the pedals. How worn are the pedals? Is there lots of work from braking and accelerating? There's a big difference for cars that have done lots of motorway driving compared to cars that have done lots of short journeys, particularly on the school run. Cars that have done their miles on longer distance trips are likely to be in better condition than the short, sharp journeys to the shops. So let's look at the negative points for high mileage cars. Now the first one is the potential for repairs. High mileage cars may require more frequent servicing or replacement of worn parts. Certain components may have experienced more wear and tear than others. There's also likely to be limited or no warranty left. These cars are 20 years old, so don't be buying it expecting to have some form of warranty. Because of that, you are likely to have to foot any bill that comes up with it, so don't be looking at someone else to maybe cover the costs, particularly not previous owners. Cars are normally sold as seen, and that is buyer beware. We've already touched on this third point, but it's resale value. These cars are already rock bottom, so don't be expecting to make a fortune on any resale. So don't be looking to buy an Audi TT Mk1 to make a quick flip and make some money. So hopefully that's given you an insight into higher mileage Audi TT Mk1s. Don't let it put you off completely, because there are some great bargains out there, particularly if you can find really tidy examples with great service history and only a few owners. That being said, there's also a lot of old bangers out there that you definitely want to stay away from, because they turn into the proverbial Audi TT Mk1 money pit. I hope you found this video useful today. If you have, then please do give it a thumbs up, and also think about subscribing to my channel if you've not already done so, where you'll find a whole host of content on the Audi TT Mk1. As always, thanks for watching and see you soon. Take care.